Today we'll start Kuf Gimel Amid Beis. A new Mishnah, easy. Kayin Shalaka Betzboi Karach Lagmi. A kayin that has a bruise on his finger, he can wrap a reed around it. Now a reed is healing, so there's a problem of doing refuah on Shabbos, but we push that off. We push that off over here. It says L'Avay Rachara. It doesn't look good to have like blood coming out of his hand when he's doing Avayda. And Avalai Medina, but you can't do this in the rest of the country. Why not? Because make it active.
Because why? You don't hear it.
Just get a sip of it. And the reason is because it's refuah. I'm sorry. It's healing. And we're not allowed to do healing for things that aren't that don't have any sakana. But if you're squeezing it tight, what's it called when they squeeze the tight to squeeze blood out? Dr. Stein.
What's it called? Squeezing.
No, there's this thing. What do they squeeze your arm when they take blood?
Oh, tourniquet.
Tourniquet.
So,
Is there a nickel?
So then, so then it's usher, because that is totally unnecessary. It's not necessary in the Bais Hamikdash. It's not necessary. And besides not being necessary, it's also chayvel. It's causing blood to come out, which is considered making them bruised. Okay, Amar Rav Yehuda Breder Rav Chia Leishanu Al Gmiya Val Tziltzil Katna V'Yisur Begadim. Rav Yehuda, the son of Rav Chia. Rav Chia was a student of Rabbi. He was the one that edited the Tosefta, Rav Chia and Rav Aisha. His son, his name is Rav Yehuda. He had two sons, Yehuda and Chizki. Rav Yehuda, the son of Rav Chia, says that what is the Kayin allowed to do? He's allowed to put on a reed, but he's not allowed to put on a little bandage, a little gartel around his finger. Why? Because it's Yiter Begadim. We're talking about a Kayin that does the Avodah. He's only supposed to be wearing 4 garments. If he puts on this little bandage on his finger, it's going to be 5 garments, and it's not one of the garments that's listed in those parshas. Rabbi Yochanan is probably the same time. Probably a student also of Rav Chia and Rabbi. And Rabbi Yochanan, there's no problem here. It's on his finger. The Torah tells me which clothing he's supposed to wear. So on the finger, it doesn't tell me not to wear clothing. It's not that it said 4 garments. It says which garments, yes. This is not considered anything, any desecration of what the Torah said. It's not in a place of where the garments are worn. It's on his finger. Ah, very good. You're going to see that in a moment. Very good. Yeah. Right, the size of a garment. Very good. This is the question that's in the back of everyone's mind. That how is the Kayin allowed to do this? How is he allowed to put something on his hand? When he's doing the Avayda, it says V'lakach HaKayim, V'zarak HaKayim. It means he has to do it with his hand. He can't be wearing gloves. He can't have something on his hand. So it's a chatzitza. My answer is bismal. Talking about that the bruise. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. The bruise was on his left hand. He's not doing Avayda with his left hand, so there's no chatzitza. It's not interrupting his hand from the keli, because he's not holding anything. It could be it's in his right hand also. And it's not in the place of Avayda. Like, for example, it's on the back of his hand. Right? He's not holding it. It's not in the grasp. It's on the. Okay. Upligi de Rava. This argues on something that Rava said. Rava says in the name of his father-in-law, Rav Chizda, his teacher. B'makim begadim afilu nima achas chaytzetzes. Leb'makim begadim shalish shal shalish chaytzetzes. Pachas mishalish shal shalish ena chaytzetzes. It goes like this. The word chaytzitz over here is a little bit difficult because it's not always what it's referring to. It says that if it's in the place of clothing, That means it's under his shirt, under his pants area, maybe under the hat area. So that's b'makim begadim, and even one thread is a chatzitza. Chatzitza makes sense in that instant. Even though it's not a garment, but it's chaytitz between where the garment's supposed to be in his body. If it's shalei b'makim begadim, then it's considered yiter begadim, an extra garment. If it's 3 by 3. It's 3 by 3, 3 by 3 at spice, 3 by 3 finger breadth. Then it's chaytzitz. If it's less than 3 by 3, then it's not chaytzitz. The Gemara says like this: Ad Rabbi Yechanan vadi pliga. It's definitely arguing on Rabbi Yechanan, this statement. Why? Because Rabbi Yechanan said, "Lo yamar yita begadim el makom begadim." Rabbi Yechanan says that there's only problem of an extra garment if it's in the place of where the garments are worn. Rav is saying in the name of Rav Chisda that if it's 3 etzbais, if it's 3 by 3 finger breadths, then it's yiter begadim, even if it's not in the place of the begadim, even if it's on his finger, it would be a problem. So that clearly argues with Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan was more lenient than this. Other Rabbi Yehuda Breder Rav Chia, mi name of the pliga. What about Rabbi Yehuda Breder Rav Chia? He said that there was an issue if it would be a tziltzul, if it would be a small belt that would be wrapped around his finger. He said that would be an issue. Now the only problem with that is that we said that it needs to be 3 by 3. That small tziltzul, that small belt that goes on his finger. Is less than 3 by 3, so it could be it argues on Rav Yehuda Breder Rav Chia as well. The Gemara says no, not necessarily. Kashani tziltzul katan the chashuv. This type of belt is chashuv, and even if it's significant, even if it's less than 3, it's still considered a garment. So no, it's really only a garment is a garment. Only 3 by 3, but this is a something special, so it's even less than that if it gets considered as a garment. So not necessarily would Rav Yehuda Breder Rav Chia be arguing on Rava in the name of Rav Chisda. Lishnachrena, we can say this a little different. There's another version of this, which comes out slightly different. Amrila, there are those that say, Am Rav Yehuda Breder Rav Chia leishanu g'miyal b'tzivtzil katan chaytzitz. The only thing that the kain's allowed to put on is the reed. But if it would be a small garment, a small belt, that would be a chatzitza. Now, the word chatzitza over here is problematic. And what it means is that it would be yiter begadim, an extra garment. We're using chatzitza just to say that it doesn't work, because later on we're going to use that term chatzitza. Rabbi Yechanan says, by the way, Yehuda Breder Rav Chia is exactly the same so far. So there was no change in that aspect. Rabbi Yechanan says, like Amr chatzitza b'pachas mishalish al shalish ela b'makim begadim. Chatzitza that's less than 3 by 3, that's only if it's in the place of the garments. It would interrupt between the garments and the body. But if it's not in the place of the garments, which means on his finger, only if it's 3 by 3. He uses the word chaytitzis. Chaytitzis means yiter begadim, like we said before. So once it's 3 by 3, then it's a problem. Oh, behind the Rav Amar Rav Chisda, and now Rabbi Yechanan is saying exactly what Rav says in the name of Rav Chisda. What does Rav say in the name of Rav Chisda? That it depends if it's 3 by 3, if it's a garment. If it's a real garment, then it's chaytzitz. Lema pliga de Rav Yehuda Breder Rav Chia. Let's say that this argues on Rav Yehuda, the son of Rav Chia, because he said that it needs to be a reed, and it shouldn't be a belt, because a belt would be problematic. So we say that Shani Tiltul Katan L'Chashav. This is even though the belt isn't 3 by 3, but it's Chashav, the way we answered before. But now it's coming out that Rabbi Yechanan fits with Rabbi Yehuda, with Rava in the name of Rav Chisda exactly, and Rav Yehuda Breder Rav Chia fits with Rava. How do they both fit with Rava if they're arguing? The machlekes would be if a tiltzul katan is considered chashav. Although Rabbi Yechanan, and according to Rabbi Yechanan, according to Rabbi Yechanan, you're allowed to use a tiltzul katan. You're allowed to use the small belt. Why do you have to use a reed? Milsa agavorcha kamashmulan. It's coming to teach me a side halacha, the gemi masi. that even though the reed is healing on Shabbos, you're still allowed to use it on Shabbos. An extra chiddush. The belt didn't do any healing; it covered it over, so it didn't look bad. But the reed is healing also, and that's the chiddush that you're allowed to use it on Shabbos. Ain't supposed to be mikdash. You're allowed to do that. Okay, we have a new Mishnah on Kuf Daled. Boiskin melach al gabe kevesh b'shvil shliach liko. Boiskin, the word boiskin in context over here means to scatter. Rashi says it means to crush. Brings a pasuk. Naftali brings a pasuk. Kamara abazek. Remember you mentioned that sefer. So yeah, right. But I guess what it means is that you crush it to spread it out. This guy. You're allowed to spread salt on a ramp so that it's not slippery. Yeah. Not because of ice. We do that for ice, but this is for just because it got wet. And so it should be it should have traction. People shouldn't slip. Mamalin mibara gula, probably mibara gadol, the galgal b'Shabbos. You're allowed to fill up water from these two wells, which were two wells in the base of Mikdash, baragul and baragadol, with a pulley. You're allowed to use a pulley on Shabbos in the base of Mikdash by these two wells. We'll see what the issue is everywhere else. And we be'er haker b'yamtiv, and from the be'er haker on yamtiv, you're allowed to use a pulley. Okay, we'll see in the Gemara all of that. Rami lei Ravika mi Pashuna l'Rava. Ravika from Pashuna asks Rava. Tanan, in our mission it says, you're allowed to scatter salt on the ramp, probably the ramp of the Mizbeach, so that it's not slippery. Yeah. So the Mikdash in the Medina law, you're only allowed to do this it sounds like only in the base of Mikdash. You're not allowed to do this anywhere else. Bit of an issue. You're not allowed to do this anywhere else. For a minnow, the problem is that if there's a courtyard, that's dirty, probably with water, got muddy, you're allowed to put straw down to absorb the water to make it more dry. So 1 second. When it came to the salt, you weren't allowed to add salt. It was only in the base of Mikdash, special heter. When it comes to the straw, you're allowed to put it down. What's going on over here? The Gemara answers, Shani Tevan blame Mavatale. You see, the issue here is when you put something down on the ramp, it could be considered binyan, your building, and it has to do with ashvei gumes. It fills in small niches in the ground that makes it so it could be considered building. So in the base of Mikdash, you were allowed to do that, but you weren't allowed to do that anywhere else, putting down the salt. However, when it comes to straw, so because straw is really used for food, animal food, and it's also used for bricks. So even if you put it down and it got wet, you can dry it out and use it for animal food, and you can use it still for bricks. So it's not building, because you're not going to leave it there. If it's something that you would leave there, then that's a problem of building. But the straw you don't leave there. But why only the only in the base of English was the salt, okay. But the straw you're allowed to do everywhere. The salt you're never going to use again. The heter was because it's not mamish building, it's just the rabbanon. It's nearer something. Yeah. Amalei Ravacha Brei the Rabba Ravashi. Ravacha, the son of Rava, says to Ravashi, Hi Melach Echidami, what's going on with this salt? What type of salt is it? Idim Avatle. If he's going to nullify the salt, he's never going to try to take it back. He's going to leave it there. Kamaisef Abinyan. He's adding on to the construction of the Mizbeach. I don't know if the salt is going to harden again. It would probably dissolve in the water, but it could be that it could. What happens when the water evaporates? Maybe the salt then hardens and stays on top of the So there's a problem over here. If you're going to leave the salt there, then you're adding to the construction and to the blueprints of the Beis Hamikdash. You're making it slightly raised or whatever, or you're adding something on, and you're not allowed to do that. Yeah, we're asking. Besides for Shabbos, you have a secondary issue here. How you allowed to do that? And if you don't nullify it, then it's a chatzitza. It's a problem. Chatzitza means that it's interrupting between his feet and where he's walking. That's an issue. The Kayan has to walk directly on the ground. He's not allowed to wear shoes or anything. He has to walk on the ground. If he's mevatel the salt, then it becomes part of the floor. So then there's no problem with chatzitza. It's the floor. But there's a problem of construction.
Right after we just used chatzitza, when we were there, we were using that again.
Yeah, right. You see over there, sometimes, let's say it says chayev, and it really meant to say aser, not chayev. It meant to say aser. So, but because everything was saying chayev, so we'll just continue with that chayev, or it would say aser, let's say, instead of chayev. We would just continue. So before chatzitza we were just continuing with the same problem, but we didn't actually switch. That the problem wasn't chatzitza, the problem was yiter begadim. Over here, it's actually an issue of chatzitza. So the Gemara answers by lachas ivarim lekebesh lav avaydi. It's taking the limbs up the ramp, which is not considered an avayda. So there's no problem of chatzitza. So really, he's not mevatel it, but it's not a problem of chatzitza because it's not an avayda. So why do we have to discuss this? Because we're discussing Shabbos. Is it considered building? V'loi. The Gemara says, "V'loi, it's not an avayda." It says that the kohen will offer everything on the altar. He'll bring it close and offer it on the altar, and this is referring to bringing the limbs up to the ramp, which means that it's an avayda. It says it in the pasuk. So they're putting down the salt to carry the wood, which was not the actual service. That was all preparatory work. And that wasn't considered an avodah. There was no problem if there was an interruption between his feet and the floor. Darash Rava taught Chatzer Sheniskalkala. A Chatzer that's ruined. Why is it ruined? Mimei because it got dirty.
But what are you talking about the feathers?
Yeah.
That they ran up?
Yeah.
That's all.
We're talking about that they put the salt on for the halachas eitzim. What happened afterwards? I don't know.
Okay. Don't
Yeah. While they were walking up for the wood, it could be because the wood was heavy. So that could be, they wanted it to be more, less slippery. Maybe Tevin Amradaba. So if the courtyard is dirty, so you can bring straw and you can put it down on the floor to absorb the water. You can scatter it out. That's what Rava taught. Amalei Rav Papa Rava. Rav Papa is a student of Rava. He says to Rava, "V'atanik shemrada in amradale b'savale b'kupel b'shuli kupa." Says you're not allowed to do this. You can only do this in an abnormal fashion. You can't spread out the straw with a basket, with a box. You can only use it with a broken basket on the bottom, and you let the straw drip out. You have to do it in an abnormal way. You can't do this in the way that you would do it in the weekday. Hadarukim Rava Amira Levadar. So Rava sets up his Amira, which is a sage that had a loud voice that would say over the sayings of the teacher. And he said, "What I taught is a mistake." He's retracting. Ram means in truth. This is really what they said. You have to do it with the bottom of a basket in an abnormal way. I don't know what happened in this Gemara. Rav Papa tells him it's a brisa. He says it's Rabbi Lazar. I'm not sure exactly what happened over there. Whatever the case is, Rava retracted and said that you have to do it in an abnormal way. He taught the first time he taught it was too lenient. He took it back. Okay, now it says Memalim in Baragula. You're allowed to fill up from the well of the Gaila. Now, there is a place in the Beis Hamikdash that this well was. It was in one of the rooms. I forget. Okay. Ula.
Ask Yitzi Kasowitz.
Yeah. Oh, as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Still have to work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I saw that. That's interesting. So it says like this: Ula ikla lebei Rav Menashe. Ula happened to be in the house of Rav Menashe. Also, Gavra, a person came and tarafa Baba and knocked on the door. Baba means a door. Amar man hai lischel gufei the kamachale l'shabata. Who is this person whose body should be desecrated because he's desecrated Shabbos? He's knocking on the door. Not allowed to knock on the door on Shabbos, according to this. Amalei Rava, so Amalei Rabba. Sure if it's Rabba. Lo yasru ala kol shel shir. It's not usher to knock on the door. You're only not allowed to play musical instruments, and the door is not a musical instrument. Hey, the doorbell, those fancy doorbells. Oh, we're going to see that in a moment. Very good, yes. Very good. Very good. So he's saying that it's not a real problem to knock on the door. Eisvei Abai is a question. Malin b'diyufi matifim miyar klachela b'Shabbos. A very interesting piece of it. The Yufi is a siphon, and I saw in the Steinsaltz that he says, I don't know how to pronounce the Greek words, but he says it comes from the Greek diabetes. That has to do with the siphon. I'm not sure exactly. Anyway, the way it's worked was like this. If you take a straw, a tube, you siphon water out of one barrel or wine out of a barrel, you can, depending on the height, you can get it to go into the next barrel. And that would make a noise. It would flow on its own. So they would make this noise for a chayla. And miyarik is another interesting device where it had like a shower head, like a fountain. And the top was very narrow. And you would fill it up with water and you would put your finger over the top and you could let water out. And it would sprinkle down. When you put your finger on the straw, you can hold it in by stopping the top. Yeah. So you're allowed to do this for the chayla. What exactly for the chayla? We have to see in a minute. I mean, what's the concept over here for a chayla? Like, what does he get from this? It says the chayla in the bari lai. You're allowed to do this for a chayla, but not for a healthy person. So haichidami, what's the case? Lav dinim kabay delitar. Shema mina ludikalas. He's asleep, and you want to wake him up. So you have to wake him up very lightly, gently. So you make this little noise, so he'll be able to wake up. And you're not making a melody because you're trying to wake him up. So you want to be like it's just the beginning of like get up. So so you're making a noise without a melody, and it's still usher. It's only mutter for a chayla. Gemara says, Lloyd, that's not the case. The tear v'kaboy the leinim. The mishtamaki kala the zamzumi. That's probably an onomatopoeia. He's awake and he wants to go to sleep, and you're making a sound that zoom zoom zoom. That sound that people sleep well in the rain. So the sound of the water, whatever, it's a slight melody. So that's why it's usher. It's usher because of the melody, not because it's noise. It's only it's kol shel shir that's usher. So Abaya thought this would be a raya that it's usher anyway. Comes out that no, this is a melody. Eisvei, we have a question. Someone has fruits. This is Yossi, you mentioned this. Someone has fruits or pumpkins, and he was protecting the fruits from the birds that are coming to peck at them. And his pumpkins are gourds because of animals that are coming. So he's standing there and protecting them. So he has to chase away the birds. He has to chase away the animals. So it says he's allowed to do that on Shabbos, but he's not allowed to clap, he's not allowed to slap, and he's not allowed to dance like he would do it, like to make noise with his feet, to stomp them, to stomp them away, make a noise, the way he would do it in a weekday. My time, what's the reason why he's not allowed to do it? Also, you're not allowed to make noise. See, it doesn't have to do with the melody. You're just chasing them away and making loud noises. You're not allowed to do that. You probably can't knock on the door either. Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, no, that's not the reason why. It's also Gezer Shem Yital Tzror. The problem is once we let you start clapping and dancing and slapping, and the next thing you're going to do is take a rock and you're going to throw it at it. And you're going to throw it at it. That's going to be 4 Amos in Rosh Hashanah, or maybe from Rosh Hashanah. That's what the Gemara is answering right now. Right. But one second, Rav Yehuda says the name of Rav. Also, the women that would play like jacks, they would play. Rashi talks about this game, Kugelach, but it's Kugelach here that they would roll. What they would do is they would roll it down a board and they would set up other ones in a row. And if you could get it to hit the ones that were lower down when you rolled it, so sort of like bowling, if you can get it to hit them, then you would earn all of those guys. It was an old-fashioned game before the devices. So it says that women are not allowed to do this on Shabbos. The Bachrim wouldn't do this; they had to learn Torah. But the women would play these games, hopscotch, right? So my time, what's the reason? Because they bang against each other and they make a noise. Even though it's not a melody, but you see that it's asr. You probably can't knock on the door either. So it's like the problem is that you may make the ground flat in order so it rolls better. Dirt floors, they would have to straighten it out. If you don't say this, Rav Yehuda also says they would use apples. I don't know if the puchim are apples. This said somewhere that it's a sregim, but it's also asr, and over there it doesn't make a noise. Maybe there were small apples or something, like crab apples. Hasa Mayaludikolik, over there there's no noise. It must be that it's because of the Isser is because he makes flatten out the ground. Tanan, started in the Mishnah, Mamalami Baragulami Baragadal Begalgal B'Shabbos Mikdash and Medina Light. We learned that you're allowed to fill up from this well on Shabbos. These 2 wells, Baragula maybe, and the Baragadal with a pulley. The problem with the pulley is that it made a noise. That's what the Gemara thinks. So you're only allowed to do it in the Beis Hamikdash, but not anywhere else. It says, is it not my time? What's the reason? Maybe the issue is it not because that the pulley makes a noise when you pull it up, it squeaks. Now it's not a melody. So if it makes just any noise, that's usher. And so you're not allowed to knock on the door either. The Gemara says, once we allow you to use the pulley, you may get the water up and then you're going to spill the water over into your garden. You have all this water and you're going to end up watering your garden, which we don't want you to do on Shabbos. Now, Amimar allowed them to use a pulley in Mechusa. Mechusa was a city, a big city. This is where Rava lived. Amar, my time ago, Rabbanan. What's the reason why the sages prohibited using a pulley to get the water up? Because maybe you're going to bring it into your garden. Over here, there's no gardens, just apartment buildings, Manhattan, right? So, I don't know what they call it. What is it? A concrete jungle. So, it's not a problem. However, it was still a problem. There's no gardens and there's no broken down areas that things are going to grow. So the Gemara says, Kivan the kachaza the kataru bayai ba kitna. Once he saw that they were soaking their flax in it, then asalahu. Then he said it's asar. So they found something else prohibited to do. So he didn't want them to have all of that water. Apparently, it's only large amounts of water. Otherwise, you'd have a question why you're allowed to turn on your faucet on Shabbos. I think it's only large amounts of water. Like the pulley would pull up huge buckets of water. That was an issue. But the faucet is just a little drip, comes out. I'm not sure. I don't know. From this Gemara, it looks like there's a concern that you may end up watering your field in the city. But we're going to say if you're out in the, if you have a farmhouse, you're not allowed to turn your water on over there. I don't know. I never heard of that. I never lived on a farm, so they never had to tell me. Okay. From this well, you're also allowed to draw with the pulley. My beraker. What is the beraker? I'm a small barsha hekeru ala advarim ve'itiru. This is a well that they announced that you're allowed to use it. Apparently, the people were coming up from Bavel, and along the way, they were being oila regel. They announced that there's a well here that you're allowed to use. And they're allowed to use the pulley to encourage people, I guess, to come. Meisvei, 1 second, is that the pshat? Not all bayris hakeres did they allow, only this one. Well, the Gemara is like questioning the definition of hakeres. It doesn't make sense. If it was an event that occurred at a certain well, then you can't say not all bayris hakeres you're allowed to. What do you mean? There was only one event where they announced that you're allowed to do it at that well. If it was something that occurred that they announced, so then what does it mean only this one? There was only one. It means a well that has a source. It's a well that's a spring, that the water comes out. What do they call that? Artesian well. They dig a little bit, in the Fiji water, it says artesian. They dig a little bit and the water comes straight up. Comes to the surface.
So what's the heter?
So the heter is still the same heter that it was because of, now it makes sense, that Brisa, that they only allowed it at like kolabayr sekeres. Not all of those wells, springs, did they allow. They only allowed it at that one that was on the way from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, to Yerushalayim, that the people should be able to be a Lurego. Gufa, like kolabayr sekeres etil zubulvad. I don't know. This must have been a major stop. Big rest area.
We only have 4 days to go.
It's a 15-day walk, right? Does it say it's 15 days? Yeah, that's why Zion Chesha. So, yeah, maybe they could carry water for 3 days. So it says that they rested there when they would come up to Bnei Agayla. And the Nevi'im Shabinei Mitir and it was Chagei Zechariah Malachi that allowed it. It wasn't really the Nevi'im, it was just Minhag Aviseim. It's a very confusing Gemara. So why do you say it was Nevi'im? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think they quote the Yavitz over here that he says that they knew it anyway, because if the Yisrael, if they're not Nevi'im, they're B'nai Nevi'im. And so somehow their intuition, he calls it like their intuition was that this is acceptable. They knew it, and it was, yes, the prophet said it, but they also knew it without that. Okay. Start a new Mishnah. Sheretz Hanimtza Shenimtza B'Mikdash. This is a small creature that's one of the 8 shratzim that's tamei when it dies. So if it's found in the Beis Hamikdash on Shabbos, there's a lot of issues here. First of all, it's muktzah. It's muktzah because there's nothing that you do with it. It's muktzah machmasat machmaskufay, and a kayan can't touch it because a kayan is going to become tummy, and a kayan that's tummy should not be in the base of Migdash. And he really shouldn't be making anything else tummy either. So he has to get it out of there without making anything tummy. However, he's also not supposed to leave it there and go look for some item. So he has to make a lot of decisions. Which problem does he want? But a non-kain shouldn't be in there. He shouldn't be going to. It depends where. Let's see. Depends where. Let's see. So we start off like this. The Tanakama says, which is Rabbi Yomi Breka, he says, "Kayin maitziyah behem yenai." The kayin takes it out with his belt. Shleilishis esatuma. Not his concern is that the tumah shouldn't stay there any longer. Get it out right away. He has available his belt. Use the belt to take it out. Now the problem is that if he's touching it with the belt, then the belt is going to become tamei, which maybe makes him tamei. So we say, yeah, the belt is going to become tamei, but the belt can't make him tamei because the eight shratzim are an avatama. So the belt becomes a rishon l'tama, but a person can't become tamei off a rishon l'tama. Maybe is lifting it up. Well, a sheretz doesn't give off tuma by lifting, only with actual touching. A person is never a sheni. Only food becomes a sheni. So as long as he has anything interrupting between his hands and the sheretz, he's not going to become tamei. So the kain doesn't become tamei, and he gets it out right away. Divrei Rabbi Yochanan ben Breker. Rabbi Yehuda says, "B'tzvah shaleitz shleiler rabbis esatama." Rabbi Yehuda says, you go find wooden tongs. Now, wooden tongs don't become tamei because they're wood and they don't have a receptacle. It's just like what's it called? It's sushi. What do they eat? Chopsticks. You go find chopsticks and you take it out. So the chopsticks don't become tamei, and he doesn't become tamei for sure. And the only issue with Rabbi Yehuda is that you have to go find these things, and you're not taking it out right away. That would be an explanation later on for this machlekes. We'll see. Meichem Meitzian, I say, where do you take it out from? Knows which part of the base of Migdash do you have this concern? You have to take it out right away. You have to take it out from the heichal. That's the chamber, the main chamber with the menorah. From the ulam, that's the room, the large room that's in front of the heichal. It's like the top of the T. If you look at it from the top, it looks like a T. That's the top of the T. And mibein ulam v'la mizbeach. The area between the ulam and the mizbeach is a very holy area, and that also you have to take it out. After that, you don't take it out. You don't increase the tumah. You just cover it over. Rabbi Kiva says, Rabbi Kiva says no. That the whole azara, anywhere where if you would come inside tamei, or you would bring it inside, so that would be chay of kares in a shogeg echatas. That's where you take it out from, which means the whole azara. In any other place, you just cover over with the brass copper keli. There's a large keli. Mishnah says they used it for different things. Used it to cover the coals.
Why Dafka would he use brass or even copper? Dafka when you were mentioning wood, so as not to pass on the tumah.
Yeah.
Why not a wooden bowl?
There was one bowl. The Mishnah says, I forget where it was.
There were bowls in the Beis
No,
Mikdash.
this was a bowl that they used for three things. The Mishnah says this somewhere that they would use it to cover over coals that's built over on Yom Kippur. They would use this bowl. This bowl had three purposes. Now it wouldn't touch the keli. It wouldn't touch the sheretz, and if it did, you put it in the mikveh and it was done. It wasn't complicated.
But I'm saying the tumah would pass to the kain if he touched the metal. The metal would touch.
No, tumah through metal goes. There's a machlekes here, Rashi and the Rambam, I believe, that if a sword touches a mace, the sword becomes avi avos as well, which passes on to the person. The person becomes an avatuma, and it doesn't become the sword becomes an av, and then the person becomes the sword retains the tumah. And some say it's metal. Any metal retains the original tumah by a mace. I know that doesn't apply to the sheretz.
It's the case of the sheretz. Okay.
Avi knew that. He was just testing.
Oh.
Avi knew that.
want to make mention of Abi that is finishing Eiruvin. Okay. Reb Shimon Omer Makim Sheitir Lachachamim Mishalach Nas Nalach Shleitir Lachal Misham Shvus. Reb Shimon is coming in here. It's not really the connection over here. We'll see what it is in the Gemara. We'll probably finish that. Professor will probably learn that explanation for us by the Siyam. What this means. That the sages, they gave you your own area, then they allowed you because it's only a shvus. See what it has to do with the measurements of the tchum. Okay, Amar Rav Tavi Bar Kisna Amar Shmuel. Rav Tavi Bar Kisna says the name of Shmuel. Hamachnes Tmei Sheretz L'Mikdash Chayev. You have to read this carefully. If someone brings in something that's tamei from a sheretz, means probably a vessel that became tamei from a sheretz, you bring it into the Beis Hamikdash, he's chayev. Rashi says he's chayev kares.
So the Kohen has to leave his belt outside.
I'm sorry?
The Kohen has to leave his belt outside after he gets the lizard out. He has to come back with no belt.
Very good. That's interesting. Very good point. Very good point. So Rashi says he's chayev kares because it says the word chayev. Rashi says it means kares. And the Gra says this is clearly a mistake. It's clearly a mistake, he says. Can't be chayev kares.
The Vilna says he gets lashes.
Yeah. How do you see that? Where do you see that?
This is in the I don't know, the little small booklet I have here.
Okay.
Does he changes Rashi's
In
words?
the Varmalchus. Okay. So it's just, he says it's a different shot in Rashi. The chayev is still there, but it's chayev lashes. Sheretz atzmei pater. This is the chiddush over here. That it's not, it's only if a tamei sheretz brings in, but a sheretz itself is pater. Unbelievable. It's like so counterintuitive. It doesn't have anything. Like, what would be the explanation for that? You're not allowed to make. You have to send away all tumah from this camp, from that camp, right? And all of a sudden, you pater if you bring a sheretz in. My time. What's the reason? Amar kram yizochava nekeva to shalecho. From male to female, you have to send out if they're tummy. Mishi ishli tara b'mikvah. We do this comparison. What's a zocher nekeva? A male or a female? We're talking about people that if they become tummy, they go to the mikvah and they become tar. So only things that could become tar, those are the things that you have to send out. Yatsa sheretz, shein leitara. But a sheretz never becomes pure. So therefore, as much as you dip it in the mikveh, it doesn't become pure. So it doesn't go under that category that you have to send it out. It's not the prohibition. Probably not a nice thing, but it doesn't mean it's a prohibition. Lema Messiah will bring a support for this. This is Rav Tavi Bar Kisna in the name of Shmuel. There's a brisa that says, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, it says that a kli cheres that's tamei you don't have to remove. Now we know that a kli cheres doesn't have tara b'mikveh. An earthenware vessel needs to be broken. You can't put it in the mikveh to make it pure. My time, alav mishum d'lesei tara b'mikveh. Shmuel is right. Shmuel says that a sheretz itself is your pater if you bring it in because ain't tara b'mikveh. And Rabbi Yossi Aglili says a kli cheres. Same logic. Ain't tara b'mikveh. The man says light. It's not the same logic. It's not a support. It says misha nasa avatum yatsa kli cheres sheina nasa avatum. What's happening here is that in order for something to be an avatuma, it needs to either touch a mace, touch a corpse, becomes an avatuma. The corpse would be aviyavais. And there is another possibility of something to be an avatuma. That would be tumas medras. Anything that's mishkav u'moshev, anything that you sit on or lay on, in a zav or a nida, they lay on it or sit on it, it becomes the same tumah. It's a strong tumah. It becomes the same tumah as the person himself. So they are an avatama, and what they sit on, the chair, the bed, becomes an avatama also. So those are the things that need to be removed. But something that can't become an avatama, the kli cheres can't become an avatama. Why? The kli cheres touches a mace. Rashi goes through the whole thing. It doesn't become an avatama. And a medras. A kli cheres can't be a medras. Oh, thank you. Kli cheres can't be a medras. Why not? Why not? Because you can't sit on it. It'll crack. Very bad idea to sit on a pot, on an earthenware pot. You don't know when it's going to break. It's not advisable. So it's not considered a chair. So it doesn't take weight. It's used to carry things, but it's they would cook with it also. But it's not something that you sit on. So therefore, it can't become an avatuma. What we just did was we just got rid of the support for Shmuel that says that a sheretz itself, or Tavi Bar Kisna, the name of Shmuel, that says that a sheretz itself is pater. If you not the sheretz is pater, the person that brings it in is pater. Lema ketanai. Let's say that this is really a machlekes tanaim. It says sheretz nimtza b'mikdash. A sheretz that's found in the base of English. We quote our Mishnah. The Kayan takes it out with his gartel so as not to delay the tumah staying in the base of Mikdash. Rabbi Yehuda says that he goes and he gets wooden tongs. Let's say that's what did he say it was? The chopsticks. Gets chopsticks so as not to increase the tumah. So my lav vakamiflagi. This must be the machlekes. The man, the yamar shleilish is ksaver machnes sheretz l'tumachai. The one that says that you shouldn't delay. He's the one that holds that if you bring a sheretz in, you're chayiv. Shmuel is not according to everyone. If you bring a sheretz in, you're chayiv, and therefore don't delay. Get it out right away. Yeah, the mitzvah of you have to be mishaleach michutz lamachne. You have to send it out from. Is referring to a sheretz also. That's why don't delay, get it out right away, even though you're increasing the tumah by making the gartel tamid. Mandam shleila rabbis, the one that says don't increase the tumah, that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Because that if you bring a sheretz in, you're pater, because for whatever reason, it's only something that's tummy from a sheretz that would be chai, but the sheretz itself is pater. So we say, okay, don't worry about it. Just don't increase the tumah. And we're allowed to delay taking it out in order to get the chopsticks or whatever to be able to get it out. Gemara says, like, that's not the machlekes. The Kuli Alma, really, everyone holds chayiv. Everyone argues with Shmuel. Everyone says that the sheretz, if you bring a sheretz in, you're chayiv. Here's the machlekes. The question is, increasing time or increasing tumah? Rabbi Yehuda holds it's better to increase. It's better to delay and let it stay there for longer, as long as you don't increase tumah, the quantity of the tumah. And the Tanakama, which was Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka, says that it's better to increase tumah as long as you don't increase in the time.
He's also making a davar shebek kedusha tamei. Now, isn't there a big day kone kedusha?
Yeah. And nevertheless, I don't know exactly what it says about that, because they can put it in the mikveh and it would become tar. But nevertheless, according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka, that's better than delaying, than it staying there for longer. It may have to do with the way they view time. The Achronim like to discuss this. If time is considered different pieces of time. I don't know how you call that pieces of time. Okay. In other words, increasing, allowing the tumah to stay there is another time of tumah, another time of tumah, another time of tumah. That's also increasing, as opposed to if I just look at time as, well, it's there already and time is going, but there's nothing changing. It's not a new, like photons of light, like there's a new piece. I don't know how that works with time. Okay, Ella, Kahani Tanoi. Rather, it goes like the following Tanoim. The Tanan, Mehechem I say, where would they take it out from? Where would they take it out from? We had a machlekes between Reb Shimon ben Nanas and Rabbi Akiva. Reb Shimon ben Nanas says that you take it out from the Heichel, from the Ulam, from in between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, but after that you can leave it there, you cover it over with the Pesachta. And Rabbi Akiva says, no, you take it out of the whole Azara. My love, must be the machlekes. The Manda Amar Me Azara Loi. Read that together. The one that says, Reb Shimon ben Nanas says, you don't need to take it out of the Azara, is pater. That was the opinion of Shmuel. That says that if you bring a sheretz in the base into the Azara, you're pater. So then why are you allowed to take it out from those other places on Shabbos? And you make something tummy also, possibly. It says that, Rashi says, that has to do with Kavod Shechina. Interesting. Kavod Shechina. It doesn't have to do with that original biblical prohibition of get it out of the Azara. Because really in the Azara, there's no issue. It's just an Indian of Kavod. Man Damar Mikula Azara, the one that says that you have to take it out from the whole Azara, which is Rabbi Akiva, he holds Kasavar Chayev, he holds it's Chayev. Okay, now the following Gemara, we're on the last Damar Kofei. Rashi learns, Amar Rabbi Yechanan is saying that no, really everyone holds that if you bring a sheretz in your Chayev. And the Machlekes has to do with V'yishlachum and Amachas, we'll see. Shnei Mikra Chadarsha. Rabbi Yechanan says they learn from one pasuk. Vayavayu HaKayanim Lepnima Beis Hashem. This is in the time of Chizkiyahu. He takes over after his father, Achaz. That was a lot of Avodah Zaros and everything. So they're cleaning out the Beis Hamikdash. The Kayanim come inside the Beis Hashem, Latar, to purify it. By Yitzias Kol, we said that an Avodah Zaros Metame can either something touching an Avodah Zaros gives up Tumah. Yitzias Kol Tumah Shematzu Behechel Hashem Lachotzer Beis Hashem, and they take it out, anything that they found in the Hechel, to the courtyard. By Yikablu Al Levim Leitzinachen, Hidron Chutza, and the Levim took it to take it down to the valley outside. Probably, I guess it means to put it in the mikveh, maybe. Okay, they switched hands from Kainim to Levim. Mar Savar, this one holds. Savar, this one holds. By the way, the word Savar, which means to think and to hold, is the Hebrew word that's similar. The eyes of any call, the eyes of everyone, to you, they think, they hope, but their hopes are Isabeira. So there's the Aramaic Savar is really the Hebrew Yisabeira. It passes over. Okay. Mar Savar, this one holds, which we were talking about now, Reb Shimon ben Nanas, that he said that you only take it out from the ulam until the mizbeach. After the mizbeach, you can allow to leave it there. Midestani ba'azara b'leviyim, the fact that it switches hands in the azara to the leviyim, so tumma ba'azara leka. There's no tumma in the azara. There's not a concern of the tumma being in the azara. Why? Let's go back to what we said before. Maybe because in lekara b'mikvah. This was a sheretz itself. No. What's the pshat? Tumazar lesa. Not sure. Why not? Mar Savar Rabbi Kiva holds ad hechad b'layafshe b'laviyim mafki kainim hashtef shelvim solemitami kainim. Rabbi Kiva says no. Really, it shouldn't be there. The only thing is, and really the kainim shouldn't be doing it. The only problem is the leviyim weren't supposed to walk to that area, into the hechal and all of that. So they had kainim do it, but really it should be leviyim. What we're explaining over here is that if we're ready to switch from kainim to Leviyim, it's obviously because we don't have a real concern about the Tumah being in the Azara itself. Otherwise, we would not be switching. The fact that we're switching is because it's not a real concern. Okay. Tana Rabbanan, let's start in the Braisa. Hakol nechnasim behechel livnei salasakin al haitzias atama mitzvah b'kayanim. We taught in the Braisa that everyone can go into the hechel to build, to fix, and to take tumah out. However, the mitzvah is b'kayanim. It's a bigger mitzvah for the kayanim. If you don't have kayanim, then the leviyim should go in to do it, into the hechel. If you don't have leviyim, but whether it's whatever you're going to use, whatever's available, they have to be tar. They can't be tumah. Amar Rav Huna. Rav Huna says Rav Kana Messiah Kani. Rav Kana is supporting kayanim. The Tani Rav Kana, because Rav Kana taught. It says, but to the curtain he should not come, which means he shouldn't go into the Kodesh HaKodashim. Maybe the Kainim should not, Kainim Balimumin should not come into that. Oh, 1 second. Achal Aprechas Layavai. Maybe it's referring to the Kayim Balmum.
And he mentions here in the notes that it's in a Yisrael that's tahir would come before a kain that's tummy. I don't know if it's referring to that.
Yeah. So this pasuk is referring to a kain with a blemish. Shall not go onto the veil. He can't come near the altar. Maybe he shouldn't even come there just to do work, to make the plates that were used to cover the gold that would be used to cover the Kodesh HaKodashim. Talmud Mar Ach. It says Ach. What was the pasuk again? Achalam is Perechas Layavai. But anything where it says Ach, it's coming to be mamayat something. It's coming to exclude something. Ach Chilek. It's an exclusion. Mitzvah b'tmimim. Really, it's a mitzvah that it should be tmimim, a kayin without a mum. Ain't sham tmimim. If you don't have a kayin without a mum, nechnasim bali mumen, then bali mumen can also do it. Mitzvah b'tayrim. Really, it should be kayinim that are tahar. Ain't sham tayrim, nechnasim tmeim. But if you don't have kayinim that are tahar, then you use tmeim. However, idi bidi kayinim and yisraelim light. Whatever the case is, you always use a kayin before a yisrael. So that's what he means. Rav Kahana is supporting the kayanim by having the kayanim are the ones that do this work rather than a Yisrael, even if he's a balmum. Ibailu, where's the question? Tameyu balmum is mem nichnas. If you have two possible problems, he's either a kayan, but he's a balmum, or he's a kayan that's tameh. Kayin that's tameh or a kayin that's a balmum? Which one takes precedence? Rav Chia Barashi Amarav Tami Nechnas. Chia Barashi says the tameh comes in first. Why? Because we find leniencies by tumah that we don't find by a balmum. What is that leniency? Let's say everyone is tameh. So tumah hatra b'tziba. You're allowed to bring a carbon. If the whole congregation is tameh, you're allowed to still bring the carbon. Tumah is hutra b'tziba. So you see that a kayin tameh would take precedence over a balmum. You never find that a balmum, if everyone's a balmum, that you do it. That doesn't say that. Rabbi Lezer says that no, the balmum is the one that comes in, that he's the one that does this, because a balmum is allowed to eat the sacrifices. He just doesn't do the service. Okay, let's leave this over here, and hopefully everyone tonight will be able to make it. It's at 6:15 upstairs. What's